Okay, test.
Yeah. Audio is a pain.
Yeah, I get it.
Alright, sounds like we're good.
Okay.
Can probably adjust things if we need to. Yep, sounds like chat's saying that we're good right now.
Okay, so I'm gonna get started, and I think we can just explain things as we go. So, are we good on you guys' end?
Whenever Shuttle wants to start the timer. Okay, so go ahead and count us down. Just start when you say go.
Okay.
Say go.
Gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so these members of Celceta. First thing you're gonna notice is a cutscene fast forward.
It's kind of ridiculous. So this intro cutscene took about 90 seconds on the Vita version. It takes about 18 on this version. And they added even more so.
So, basic movement at the start, just gonna be rolling. It's very simple, very fast. Can kind of get into more explanation with when we get different characters about how they all roll different speeds.
Yeah, so basic premise of this game is we play as a series protagonist, a red-haired adult Christian, as he kind of lost all his memories of everything that happened in every other East game that he's in, basically. So he needs to kind of get his memories back. So if you're familiar with really old East games, a lot of them you're played as a single character, usually Adol himself. In this game we actually have a three-person party system, which was introduced in East 7. So the last couple times I have run this game for the marathon, I usually run on higher difficulties for marathons. We're just going to be running on easy difficulty this time because that's the fastest by a fair margin, about 5 minutes.
What am I doing? Okay. So what you saw there, some basic combat, but there's sort of different attack types in this game. What is it? Strike, slash, and pierce. Enemies have different weaknesses.
Yeah,
and that was so the tutorial for that.
Yeah, the weaknesses are pretty irrelevant for the speedrun with one exception. It's actually not the weaknesses, but just the weapon types of your party. So right here, actually, it does kind of matter that you want to kill those enemies in a specific order, because we're going to be doing some death abuse, and we really want our second character here, the blue-haired guy. His name is Duran. He's going to be the main guy we do for movement. We want him to be level 3 after the first boss. If he's level 4, it's not that much of a time waste, but it is like one of those minor things that routing comes into play in on lower difficulties, because there are actually places you lose time on lower difficulties, because you need to actually abuse pets. So what he's going to do right here is pick up a rotodroplet, and the rotodroplet is an item that works basically like a phoenix down. We're going to need to use that. The blue-haired guy, fake Dozy. This first boss here, his name is Alderboss. You're going to get into the meat of the combat system here, where you use a amount of flash guard, sometimes flash dodges to deal with this guy's attacks. A flash guard is basically a parry that nullifies any incoming damage, and gives you a couple seconds of mini crits, where you do 25% more damage per hit. And so that's how you just utterly decimate that guy. It pretty much proceeds the same way on all difficulties except for Nightmare.
So now we have the ability to warp. I'm gonna use that. Not actually very often for just the Silver Wing, but yeah.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm also trying to be quiet myself. It is like 7 AM here.
Yeah, I'll try to talk a bit more, do a bit more of the commentary. So also, sort of through all of that, we kind of skipped over the fact that we just went through a door. by loading a cutscene.
Don't expect too much of that.
By loading a cutscene which reset the position of our character to sort of a default position compared to reset the position of our party member relative to the character we were playing as, which put him behind the door.
Glorious Sean Chiplock laugh. I'm glad you didn't switch the voices to Japanese, because they did actually recently patch this game to let you do that.
Yeah, I've actually not looked into that yet. I'm probably gonna have to, but that was like
Doesn't really
3 days ago.
Yeah, this port's been out for a year and a half. Still not as great as how they added voices to Oath and Felghana, which is another game on Steam. They did a voice track for that game in like 2010, and they patched it in 2020. It's kind of that crazy.
And also, yeah, okay, that covered in chat, but yeah, PS4, this game's coming out on PS4 soon-ish. I don't remember the exact date.
My expectation is the PS4 version will be about the same, except I think it'll be capped at 60 frames per second, so it won't be running quite as fast as PC version. But
Probably won't be able to do a certain trick coming up near the end of the run, but maybe.
So, as you can probably guess by what we've alluded to, and the fact that this is an RPG that you can beat in under 45 minutes, this game is broken. Very, very broken. It was pretty stable up until about early 2017. And then we started breaking it, and the PC version came out, and we broke it some more. And then we tried offering it to some marathons. I got into a couple of them, and then it broke some more. And then it's actually been broken again since the last time we had it on the channel, so I think at this point, like, this game has gone beyond Dead Horse.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just trying to think, sorry. So story-wise, because we've barely been talking about that. Right, I actually want to take damage here. We're going to do a bit of death abuse.
Yeah, story, we're gonna be just...
Oh, that's almost too much.
exploring the forest of Celceta. Basically,
I'm gonna make a safety save.
Yeah, you can save anywhere in this game. Basically, the Governor General of the region here has not really been able to explore this whole place, so she wants us to map it out, and that's sort of our basic quest. There's a couple of key areas that we're supposed to go to. So what Zellnuu here is going to kill off Durin, and then move Adult on the ground, switch a character who is dead, and revive them, and that's going to cause them to clip through the floor. And the reason this works is if a character is despawned when they're in water and then respawn outside of water, they fall through the floor. And yeah. So we just skip across this river, saving about 2 minutes, and completely destroying the game's current state as far as cutscenes goes.
And then...
So, yeah.
And then
All the cutscenes that are supposed to play here in this next area don't load correctly.
And we're supposed to get sort of captured here, because there's issues happening in this town, and because Adol was here recently, and the issues started happening right after he left, they're blaming him for it. And that's sort of the
cutscene. It becomes a
cutscene.
recurring thing. It's like, people go missing, it's clearly Adol. River gets poisoned, it's clearly Adol. Adol's dead, it's clearly Adol. Oh no, wait, no, he's... There's a town later, everyone thinks he's dead.
We actually skip all 3 of those events now. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The still section was particularly annoying.
For now, we're just sort of talking to characters to advance the plot. So we get a party member who we need, and to trigger a fight, actually, that we need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so whenever you skip a cutscene, all future cutscenes don't load correctly, but anytime you view a memory cutscene, which is there was a memory orb at the top of this village that we activated. Anytime you view a memory cutscene, it actually resets the story state, which is really nice to prevent what would be otherwise major soft locks and major roadblocks that could get in our way of completing the game.
My turn.
So, the village
Kinda
chief's
awkward
daughter,
movement.
the village
Very
chief's
awkward
daughter,
movement.
Karna, joins us, and she's really freaking useful because, at least for this part, because as you can see, Durin is level 4. She is level 11. And she can kind of just cut things like a buzzsaw at this point.
Yeah,
on this difficult.
especially on easy, where this next fight, very much just you stand there and attack. Whereas on normal, you sort of normal and hard, you need to sort of kite around. For now, we're just going over to the next fight.
I still don't know if that term has been a thing or if just everyone has taken it from League.
Oh, what turn? So I think we already explained this, but just making sure to stay on Durin for sort of these long movement sections because he has the fastest roll of other party members. I don't know how big of a difference it actually makes, but
it's substantial over the course of the run. I want to say he's like 3 to 4% faster than the next fastest character, and like 7 or 8% faster than Adol. As soon as we enter this boss fight here, there's 4 guys that are going to attack us. He's going to want to use Karna's extra skill, which is Violent Tempest. It's the only time you get to see it in a run, unfortunately. And the idea is to kind of maneuver in just such a way that all of these enemies get hit. I think you're so used to playing normal, the actual strat here is just to kind of mash homing knives. You actually get enough SP mashing homing knives on this difficulty to just keep spamming it over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the first things with this game is if you're using a skill, while you're casting said skill, most attacks cannot stagger you.
My turn.
There
are some that can. There are some that can, but most of the ones that we use in the run don't have long enough animations for it to work unless you're just spamming them together over and over.
So now we're in sort of the second dungeon? Yeah, it's the second. Mostly just to get an item. And to set up the bee.
There's one item here and one boss fight that we are going to exploit the ever-loving heck out of. And that's really all that we're here for.
We could skip. Even if we could skip getting the item, having the bee set up saves enough time that, I don't know.
So in runs in the past that I've done of this marathon or of this game and marathons on the Limit Break channel, I used to complain a lot about this stupid bee. It's really a giant wasp, but you have to kind of just deal with it. It has like 3 different attacks, and you need it to perform one of them.
Also, I find it funny because just to kind of go on, the manual has like the first 3 bosses in it, and it calls the boss a bee and a hornet.
They're 2 completely different genuses.
Yes, and probably both wrong.
I'd consider Hornet probably closer to accurate. A Hornet's basically just a giant wasp. But anyways, yes. So our buddy Primarix recently, sometime last September, found that there's some interesting ways you can actually manipulate cutscenes in this game. So, on this particular screen, he can actually go to the cutscene viewer in the memory section, which we used for a previous trick, and the thing with this is it resets your character's position. So what he's doing here is he's actually switching party member 1 and party member 2 in his crew here, going to the cutscene viewer, and then resetting that, and you're going to see the boss intro preview cutscene repeat over and over again. But what he's actually doing is moving his characters incrementally back into the to the left. And after you perform this enough times, you actually can completely bypass the trigger for the boss. Every time he like initiated the fight, it was like, no, never mind, let's do this again. Until he got so far past that he actually bypassed the trigger entirely.
And if at any point during that I closed the menu, the boss would have just started.
Yeah, so this can actually kind of be exploited on almost every boss in the run. The reason that at some point that we're going to have to stop is certain bosses start being tied to necessary items that do not spawn until you kill the boss. Or certain triggers as well. So yeah, we're all done with Ancient Burrow. We don't have to do anything more here. The key thing is, while it would have actually been a little bit faster to use the old glitch to escape that boss, we need to not trigger a boss right now, because if you trigger a boss and leave it, which is what we're going to be doing later, and what we used to do on that boss fight, essentially that means the next screen that we go to, a boss will immediately spawn, and so the next screen where that would happen, we don't want that to happen, so that means that we're going to have to perform that trick again. Please.
And here we used to go out of bounds to get past here, but using the same trick we just used for the party first, to skip the B, we can get past the cutscene telling us that this isn't the way to the Ancient Burrow. Because the game, we're in a state right now where the game wants us to go to the Ancient Burrow and is trying to prevent us from going to the next area, because you're supposed to do them sort of one at a time. And as people in the chat mentioned, you can actually do them in the opposite order. But, yeah, we're just going to ignore that. Just going to go through. And we're also not going to even enter the next dungeon. That's
Leave it to me.
interesting. So this is sort of just like a Lost Woods type area. We need to make sure we go down the correct path, which is always in this area going downhill. If you ever go the wrong way, it resets you back to the top. Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah, so on this next screen, he's going to actually perform the trick here, despite the fact that it really would not take very long to activate the sapling there. Activating the sapling there would cause the game to be on the correct story sequence, and we do not want that.
Well, correct-ish.
Sort of. We want to break the, basically want to just completely break the story sequence here. So if we perform this to get past this little barrier here that says you need to check out the sapling here and rest for the night, that would trigger a memory cutscene, which would cause Adol to remember the last time he was at this village, which is a village called Celceta. Now the thing with Celceta is that's where we would get our fourth party members, who we're going to see a character of dark skin and yellow clothing and hair.
In cutscenes.
He is not playable. He's sort of in this Schrodinger's quantum state, where he exists but he doesn't, at both at the same time. The thing is, an old route used to skip having him in our party, so then it became faster to keep him in the party, and then we finally found a way to make it faster to remove him again. And we'd hypothesized various ways to make it work, so we basically just, like, he died, and then he came back, and then he died, and he came back.
Also, we never, the Dwarf Bracelet, never really mentioned it. It makes you smaller, which lets us get through holes, but it also allows us to take more damage. So we can...
So we just lure that giant enemy over there to immediately kill Durin. And now we're under the floor. So this area here is actually a path to the fourth dungeon of the game.
Leave it to me.
I like how you clip, when I do it that way, I clip back through the door as well.
Yeah, so this is the fourth dungeon of the game. We're not supposed to get here until the game sort of gives us a clue that on that rock there is a puzzle that would open the path to the underground room here. I'm just gonna shut up because this place actually has amazing music.
And we're just sort of using tricks to get underwater when we're not supposed to.
Yes, currently we don't have a means to dive underwater. But if you use the dwarf bracelets and the cutscene viewer, the character kind of falls into the water when the cutscene and pause menu are closed, and that gets them just enough vertical distance to get underneath the little tunnels here.
Or if you're on 60 or lower FPS, you can just do it without the dwarf bracelet. Because
Yeah, it does save time to run the game on 120 frames per second,
My turn.
but because of the refresh rate, it actually becomes impossible to like perform that skip consistently. So we just use memories to bypass that. It's worth the small time save because you end up saving like 30 seconds over the course of the run.
I also find, and I know I'm like dropping rolls a bunch right now, but I find keeping rolls consistent easier on higher frame rates, which is strange, but
Yeah, there's sort of a rhythm to it. It's not like mash speed, but like it's pretty consistently, like you're pretty much consistently hitting the button. So instead of getting any weapons or grinding on this screen, it's just gonna go up to just before the trigger for this boss, and then once again perform the memory cutscene abuse to kind of just slowly inch his characters just past the cutscene trigger of this boss.
also playing it really safe. Not going quite up to the trigger.
Yeah,
but
he doesn't have to do as many swaps here as he does. You can actually kind of do... there's kind of a specific count, but you know you've performed the trick successfully when you stop seeing the boss trigger. So that bypasses Robo Centaur Jerkface. It was one of the hardest bosses of the original route, which...
I think it was the
ends up
hardest.
On higher difficulties, this whole strat saves like, God, 4 minutes. Just not having to deal with this crap.
Yeah, even like on easy on the older route, you're never really at risk of dying, but it was just so hard to get the correct cycle, and so easy to lose just like 30 seconds on a boss fight.
The early game of this run is like one boss, one mid-boss, and a whole lot of just movement and tricks.
My turn.
Camera
I've kind
was
of eliminated
strange
just
there.
about kind of just eliminated almost every boss from the first half of the game. So there's a roadblock at the end of this town in the game normally, but because we've just broken the story state of the game, we can just ignore it. The side effect is we're actually going up this hill during the daytime instead of at nighttime, which leads to a very odd visual effect if you've played this game casually and never seen the run.
I actually forgot that you were supposed to come up here at night.
Yeah,
I've
there's this
forgotten
section
so
where-
much of this game casually.
There's this whole section where like there's a bunch of like the townsfolk are like, "Whoa, we thought you died," but then you go to Adol's grave and the thing that they buried his non-corpse with isn't there, and there's no reason he would actually leave them there. So we need to go find the ancient mask. It's supposed to be the Mask of the Sun. Anyway, this villager here, the pink-haired girl, her name's Kalilka. She's pretty useful. We never actually use her to do damage anymore. But as a secondary party member, she does the second most damage, which allied controlled party members do about like 40% damage, but that amount's still incrementally enough.
My turn.
And here, this sort of screen, you're supposed to activate all these lightning rods to get up to avoid getting hit by the lightning. But if you're in a menu, the lightning doesn't hit you, and it's on a global timer. So you just sort of... Actually, is it global or local? How?
It is global.
Okay, it is global. Yeah, because it's different when you enter the room. Okay.
Yeah, so he's skipping these lightning rods by opening the menu right as the lightning's about to hit. It's on a global 2.1 second timer. We call this section Final Fantasy X for obvious reasons. Once you get close enough to the tower, you're in sort of a safe spot, and then now if he gets hit by lightning again, he warps back to the front of the tower.
Like that.
Yeah, so the developers of this game didn't intend for us to be able to do this. It's just kind of a short-sighted... It's kind of a shortcoming, I guess, with the programming. So we can just zoom over to this left path here. You get hit again.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fairly difficult. There we go.
Yeah, so now we can hit this loading zone, and this is gonna set us up for a major trick later.
Which
Basically, now he's in a state where the game treats every screen as if he was on Thunder Tower, on the screen in front of Providence Tower, the Thunder Tower we call it. Meaning if he dies at any point, which he shouldn't unless he's doing it on purpose, because easy difficulty is pretty hard to die on, then he warps back to the tower, which is going to be really useful.
and that's another long dungeon skipped. Used to
that
be
dungeon was lengthy. It used to be our favorite dungeon because it gave you the Gale shoes, which lets you run really, really stupid fast.
Yeah, but it has a lot of cutscenes in it, which made it
Really tedious.
yep.
And a lot of movement. Oh, you're not going to go for Coral Skip, I see.
No.
The skip that saves 1 second. It is really hard.
I was watching Fremont try to do that at GDQ, and that was interesting.
But it's to AGDQ, where you, me, and Primo, all the top 3 runners of this game, we're all in the same place.
But yeah, no, that was fun.
The series is actually known quite a bit for its difficulty, but on the easier difficulties, while they are probably harder than the easiest difficulties of a lot of other RPGs, they're still usually pretty easy. And this game itself is probably the most beginner-friendly East game of them all. I definitely recommend it if you're interested in checking this series out. Although it might make certain earlier games really hard to go back to.
Yeah, it's kind of always the... I don't know how to word this, but like, which game to start on. I know even people were talking in chat, like I want to play them in release order, and... But then it's not chronological order, and going back to some of the games, like Ark, is interesting.
Ooh. Ark is a video game. I actually will defend Ark. I'll defend Ark more than Delphi will.
I like Ark, but there's 2 bosses where I was doing 0 damage on normal.
Just gotta grind, man.
One was past the point of no return.
Alright, so here's the first boss for the
Oh, whoops.
first boss in about 20 minutes.
Actually, too fast.
So we got a new party member. Her name is Frida. You're mentioning something about the weapon enemy. Frida's cool because she has Slash, which Adol also has, and Adol's going to get the best weapon later, so we want to get him caught up on levels. But if you have 2 party members of the same weapon type, their damage is increased by about 15%. Well, so Frida's Frozen Prison here does 80% of this boss's health. It's kind of insane. Yeah, it's more like 60. So yeah, his other 2 characters are so underleveled that they just get one shot. But AI party members do not die unless they will never die unless they're controlled by you.
But they stop attacking once they hit. Is it when they stop? When they hit,
When they hit
1
1
exactly?
HP, yeah.
Okay, it's not a percentage.
Yeah.
I thought it was that, but...
It's like under 5 or something.
I mean, all intents and purposes, it's 1.
Yeah, so that character was Lisa. She's the worst character in this game. I hate her. She's naive. She opens up the seal on the Dark MacGuffin and basically lets the big bad have the Mask of the Sun, which is kind of a no bueno thing.
the MacGuffin of the game, more or less.
We're vastly oversimplifying the story because there's not enough room to go over anything in it. The story of this game, it's enough to keep you interested, I guess. And it depends on what you're looking for. It's passable. Like,
It's
really
there.
What I think this game really helps with is it helps with kind of world building of the series as a whole. Gives you actually a really more of an idea of who Adult Crispin is as a character than any other East game before or since has given you. There's a lot of world building and lore things in this game, even if the main story itself is just kind of there.
I mean, it's
It's not meant to be anything in depth.
It's an RPG
Wait.
plot that gets you from point A to B.
There's some little bits and pieces to it that I enjoyed for sure, though.
My turn.
The ending being a great reference to something that may or may not be supposed to be a reference, but you know.
Let's give him a beating.
Yeah, and the kind of thing that I've always enjoyed is, like, the story of these games isn't really the focus, but, like, it's got this big interconnected world where every region of the game is, like, referenced in later games or previous games, and it's kind of neat when you hear about an area that's, like, you know, kind of involved in the, like, lore of the series, and then you go to a game, you play a game later in the series that's set in that region.
Leave it to me.
It's also kind of like fantasy real world in a way.
Some ways, until 7 and 8 happen.
Fair.
So real quick, on the swamp section, your dodge roll speed isn't capped as high, so it's actually a little faster to just mash the tar out of the dodge roll button.
And there's sort of an end game area.
Yeah, that's a preview of an area we're going to be going to later. It's supposed to be about 2/3 of the way into the run, but it ends up being where we end the run, pretty much.
The end.
The literal end. Well, not quite, but like the second to last thing.
Alright.
Don't forget the warp one.
Alright, but I don't think I've forgotten that one in a while. It's bad if you forget it though. And once we kill these guys, the only instance of this sort of mini game you see where you have to drag stuff from part of the screen to the other. There you just sort of have to weigh it down the correct amount, and it's the same every time. And now we're going to do the what we were alluding to earlier, where we need to die to warp back.
Leave it to me. Is this my turn?
Yeah, so we're trying to deliberately take as much damage as quickly as possible, which is why we entered the fight with the dwarf bracelet. And because we were in a boss fight, this brings up something that I mentioned earlier, which is if you ever leave a boss fight, the game is sort of permanently in boss mode. So any screen you enter that has a force in now, it automatically will trigger regardless of story state. These four doofuses here, they're not programmed to fight us until after we've cleared Providence Tower, and the only reason we're going back here is defeating them, apart from the levels it gives us, defeating them also triggers this cutscene, which gives us the Golden Wing, which is an item that lets us teleport anywhere from anywhere. In the regular state, you can only teleport between monuments of the same color, but now that we can just teleport anywhere.
To any monument we've been to. From
Yes,
anywhere.
yes, exactly. Any monument that we've touched. Now we're gonna go fight the frog proper. If we were to try and perform that on Sol Galba, which was the boss we fought before the frog here, the game kind of just doesn't let it work for some reason.
It doesn't put you in a weird state where you don't get oh, I already did this in a weird order. This didn't go bad. Oh, okay. Probably
So
silly.
Frog is a silly fight. If you ever hit him with a skill, he kind of gets pinned to the ground. So there's a sort of cycle that you can just do to repeatedly hit him with skills that pin him to the ground. There's a flash move. Kind of gives you a couple of seconds of bullet time. There's just a flash guard, which gives you a few mini crits. It is tough to take out anything people are saying. The combat is like aggressively louder than everything else in the game.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that when we were doing sound test.
Audio balancing this game is impossible. Trust me, I've tried.
I specifically went to a screen, the lightning screen, that I thought was loud, and not quite. Weird menuing, but now we have the Beast King clause, I almost forgot the name for a second, which replaces our roll with this sort of dash and lets us break this coral, allowing us to get here.
Good old deadly elbows.
And now that we have this, Adol is the fastest character, and also this is probably very obnoxious.
Oh, especially when you get in the swamp and everyone starts doing it.
But this is now the fastest form of movement, and now we are on to the next boss, who we will not be killing.
Yeah, this is a strat unique to the easy difficulty, actually. This fight you can also perform a boss escape on. And this isn't exclusive to the PC version currently, because on the Vita version, which this game launched with, you could not actually chain together flash guards.
Wasn't attacking at all. Okay, so now, okay, we went into phase 2, perfect. And we're gonna see something very interesting with how flash guarding. I need to be closer. Or he needs to be closer. There we go.
Yeah, so that just repeatedly chained together flash guards, which gives you enough vertical momentum to just... Well, basically the way a flash guard works is, for each time he does a guard, any vertical momentum that hits him, it gets kind of added together like a series of vectors, to the point where he just shoots so high that he can actually bypass the boundaries of the arena. And thankfully the loading zone is there in the boss fights, so you can just escape the boss fight. Gonna do that trick twice. You only do it on Mustard on the easy difficulty, because that fight is worth too much EXP on higher difficulties. You actually end up losing a little bit of time to skip them.
Yeah,
but it ends up saving time when we get to this next dungeon, because we don't have to warp to another boss fight to cause that to happen.
even on normal, the next boss coming up would be a huge pain and very slow without that experience.
This boss is a hot mess without enough EXP. So once again, doing the flash guarded chain trick to shoot over the door of this dungeon, skipping into what is basically the second to last dungeon of the game.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
that's
add
what we're going to be doing.
sort of what we were supposed to do, as far as the game's concerned, is go over to that right area where I hit the monument, watch a bunch of cutscenes, get told, oh, you need, you don't have basically a key to open a door. It's a bit more complicated, but, and that you need to find the key, which is another sort of mask. You go to 2 other dungeons, each have half of the mask, and then you kind of go here on some other errand that's completely unrelated, and it ends up being where you needed to go to fix the mask. But because we just skipped all that, we're just going to repair the mask we don't have.
Yeah, as has been alluded to in chat, there is an escort in this dungeon when you play it normally. This escort does not actually trigger properly because we've completely shattered the story state of the game.
Thankfully, because I've seen some of those older runs where you have to do the
You
escort,
have to
and
move
it's
very slowly because she cannot keep up with you at all. They move that escort into the final boss fight, and I'm not kidding. She ends up being infinitely more useful there because she can't die and she'll heal you.
which on easy means you can't die.
It's basically impossible to die at this point of the run. There's only one boss really, and easy difficulty you stand a decent chance of dying in if you're not careful. And that's the one coming up here.
She might be in danger.
There is actually a trick you can do to be large while you get into these little mouse holes, but it's not worth it to try and perform. It saves maybe it saves like a second, and it costs you like 3 every time you fail.
Yeah. Okay. So it's sort of just coming up on the end here. End of the dungeon here, not the end. One more. These wall monsters.
I think the sword basically tripled Adol's effective damage on it. Yeah, at this point we're in a dungeon that you're supposed to be in your like early 40s, I want to say, at level 29. This is on easy. On higher difficulties, it would be like 26.
Yes.
Ends up being a little higher because we actually fight Mustrum here. So when escaping Mustrum, the next screen that has a boss fight will automatically trigger. Still Galba 2, by far the most annoying boss of the run.
So for this fight, you need to kill the feet, then the hands. It's not like the first time we fought this where you just kind of smack them. Now we have to kill the feet, which makes them fall over, then we have to kill the hands, which exposes head, which is the weak point. And hopefully, if this goes well, this will be a 2 cycle. So far it's been very good. But yeah, this fight has the opportunity to go off the rails very quick. As Ghost said earlier, where it's sort of the only fight on easy where it's even possible to die.
Mostly because his fireball attack can, like, quadruple hit you in one shot.
Okay. That was different. He just didn't want to fall over for a second there.
Yeah, he does.
Oh. And yeah, because we skipped so much combat, we sort of get all these skills during these late game fights.
Yeah. Kind of ridiculous. You also get a lot of levels because this game's EXP scales magnitudinally, I guess. Essentially, the lower level you are, the more you get. The higher level you are, the less you get.
And that was an
It's not a
incredibly
fun amount.
nice B.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on the sort of end of the game. We just use the B there to skip out of the boss fight to trigger the fight that's coming up here, which is physically is at the beginning of the final dungeon, but is at the end of the final dungeon. Which means that when we finish this fight, it will trigger the sort of cutscenes and events that are supposed to happen after we finish the final dungeon. B is gone. Yeah, we only see the B once on easy now. And here we are. We're at a volcano. We've sort of defeated the big bad using the MacGuffin. stolen it. So now we have the Mask of the Sun, and we are gonna pull Lord of the Rings and throw it into the volcano. Because that is allegedly the only way to destroy it. Oh, bit stuck. And this is just some sort of movement with the Beast King Claws. You can just smash through all the rocks. I think you're supposed to be using the Gale Shoes there. And here we go. This is the last boss. As Ghost was talking about earlier, we have Lisa here, who will be healing us. But it's fairly simple anyway. It's
sort of meant to be like this giant one-on-one fight to like end the game. It's never meant to be a difficult fight, only on Nightmare.
But it's literally free when you are getting healed. And hopefully, if I blocked that correctly, that will skip his skill finish. It did. Awesome.
Yes, time's coming up very soon. Right as the game fades to white on the last cutscene.
No, this isn't happening.
I also like how Gruda there fights very similar to someone else from the series. And time.
Dude, nice.
That was really good.
Alright, we got a little bit of time to kill, so...
So New Game Plus?
New Game Plus. So if you think 80% looks kind of insane, New Game Plus is a bit of a joke.
Yeah, okay, let me... I'm gonna use my actual save for this. I didn't save at the end there. Even on Nightmare, he's not hard.
Even on
So-
Nightmare, he's really not. Like I said, he's... Okay.
I'm just gonna do it on easy, because I haven't done this in a while, so... So, whenever we're ready, I can count down.
Alright, give me just a moment.
I would have practiced this more, done Nightmare, but...
Alright, go ahead and give us a countdown.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Started my timer for some reason. Just so used to doing that. So, this will be New Game Plus. This will be very fast. This abuses the fact that, I believe in the PC port, they added a boss rush mode. So, and which the game was just telling us about. So we start the boss rush, go to the final boss. We are in sort of a boss rush mode, so if we kill him now, it will just continue the game normally. It will just go back to where we were. But if we use that attack, leave the boss, load another memory, we are now at the end of the game in not boss rush mode. I also just didn't equip a better weapon, but that's fine. And I didn't equip the upgrade. Okay. So this is a little slower than it could have been, but... Gruda's dead.
This isn't happening.
And now we just roll up here. Also, we never talked about Gruda during the normal run.
Yeah, he's kind of
And
the
that's
big
time.
bad who's tied into the lore of things. Yeah, that's time. Kind of the big bad tied into the lore of things. Set up in actually in East Origin itself. But yeah. So we normally ban boss rush abuse because of how much it trivializes things, but also because you have to beat the game, so it's technically a new game plus run. So, yeah, let's say you beat the game in less than 2 minutes.
You could technically use that to get to any point in the game after any boss. But obviously, just going to the end is the fastest. I also got really lucky with him doing the attack that knocks you out of the arena in the first attack. And sort of the same idea, you just flash guard a bunch, which pushes you over. Yeah.